guys, it's Jake, and I'm about to pull back the curtain on a pretty popular effect that we did at Dark Hour this Halloween season. Full disclosure, this is going to be a little bit more of a behind-the-scenes peek and less of a tutorial. Most places, I imagine, would not have a 70-plus foot long hallway to be able to pull off something like this. If you do, and you want to do something like this in the future, feel free to contact me, and I will help you out with some more details. But this is kind of a quick and dirty overview of how we put the effect together, and mostly it's a tutorial on programming in director software and kind of showing you how we use the BooBox to control this elaborate sequence. So if you're trying to get better at programming, hopefully this will help you out, as that is the bulk of the video. Hope you guys enjoy it and have a great season. We wanted the look of our lighting fixtures to be old fluorescent lights, because this was set in a hospital in the 1930s, and you could use any kind of lighting fixture you wanted, but that's what we decided to go with. So we started by getting the protective sleeves that you would slide around fluorescent light bulbs, and we laid down white LED tape light on the inside of those bulbs and then wired up wire leads coming out of the end so that we could attach them together. Once we got the tape lights stuck down and glued on the ends inside the tube, like you're seeing right there, we took white spray paint and sprayed it on the inside of the tube to frost it, and that way you don't see the LEDs quite so obvious and it looks like a glowing tube from end to end. And then we took black spray paint after we did the white spray paint, and we spray painted just the ends a little bit with black so that it looked kind of, gave you a nice fade out on the ends. It looked like the bulbs maybe had been burning for a while. After that, we took the covers and we attached the tubes inside of a standard shop light fluorescent light cover, and you can see there we just attached them with 2 screws each. We tried gluing them, but the glue would often come undone from the smooth painted metal of the cover, so we just shot screws in from the bottom and made sure that we had the tube rotated so that we didn't puncture the lights. Now, to program this, we open the director software and go to new show. It's going to ask what controller you want. We are using an 8-channel BooBox Flex, and we're going to come down here and select the number of channels, 8. We're going to give the show a title, and I believe we just called this one the hospital hallway or hospital hallway lights, which is fitting for the environment that it's going in, an old mental hospital from the 1930s. Now that we've selected the controller, it's going to populate our menu. We have 8 channels because that's what we told it, and the generic names are going to be output 1 through however many numbers you're dealing with, but you can go in and change those. And so to keep it easy to work with, I always like to label the channels in the software. For this one, it's just going to be light 1 through light 6, and that is going to identify the 6 fluorescent light fixtures. And then we have 2 strobe lights, a blinder strobe, which is facing the audience, and it goes off with a single camera flash when the last light goes out. And then we have the attack strobe, which is the smaller strobe light pointed at the actor for those few seconds that you see the actor. Well, I was going to start off programming by selecting a sound file, and we want to upload the sound file into the director. It's going to ask, or it's going to tell you that they must be in MP3 format, and that it's going to make a copy. The original file source doesn't get messed with, so click OK. And would you like to make your scene length equal to the length of the sound? I can't talk today, I'm sorry. Clicking and dragging this red dot is controlling the overall scene length. So if you had stuff that was going to keep happening after the audio quit, you could certainly do that. This being a short rapid fire scene, we try to keep it less than 10 seconds, so we tighten it up. And you can see up here in the audio on the top, these are the wavelengths. This is where you're going to hear audio. If you're familiar with any kind of audio editing, you'll know what this means. And I'm actually going to do another video on audio editing, so you can become more familiar with it. But over here you can see all the lights on every channel, 8 channels of the controller. And from watching the sequence, you'll know that these wavelengths are the breaker trips that you hear ba-da, 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 as every light goes out. So that is going to tell us where to start our effect. And so light 6 I know is the furthest from the audience, so it goes out first. Light 5 goes out next, light 4, and so on. So I'm going to highlight each of these channels starting right where that sound effect is so that the sound will synchronize with the light going out. And when you highlight a channel here in Director, that is going to activate that channel. And you can see here as we zoom out, this is the total length of the show. You have the scare noise audio right in the middle, and then right at the very end you have one more breaker trip when all those lights come back on. So we're going to sync up the end of each of these lights out with that breaker trip sound right at the very end of the program. And so when that final breaker trip happens at about the 13-second mark, that's going to synchronize with all of the 6 lights in the hallway coming back on. And go down here to the end. You see these are off by just a fraction, so we're going to make it nice and clean. We want to come down with that, that beat in the soundtrack and make sure all these guys are squared up and come on in exact unison to that noise. Now that we've got those lined up, the next thing we want to do is go to settings, because by default, when you highlight a channel blue, it turns that channel on. All the channels are off. But you can reverse that so that all the channels are normally on or normally closed in electronics talk. So you can come in here and you see that it displays all 8 channels we have to work with. We're going to turn those first 6 channels. We're just going to check the boxes on those first 6 channels. And that will tell it to invert that so that those 6 channels are normally closed, which means those lights are normally on. And then the areas that are highlighted blue will reverse that, turning the lights off. And so that's what we want to do right there. Now that we got that done, we got to come down and put in our strobe cues. These are still normal mode, so when we highlight blue, it's going to turn the strobes on. The blinder strobe is to help stun the audience's eyes, make them just a little more blind when the lights go completely out. So that blinder strobe is a big 3,000 watt strobe light, and it's just going to flash once like a camera flash right when that very last fluorescent fixture goes out. So after that light goes out, it's completely dark, and blinding them with that one bright strobe flash is going to stun their eyes and make it a little bit darker so our actor can move undercover. The attack strobe is the smaller strobe that's pointed at the actor to reveal them once they get into position. So we're going to come down here and we're going to line up with this scare sound effect that we've put in, this kind of crazy noises and music, and we just want to highlight the whole section of the attack strobe underneath that sound effect so that the whole time that sound is on, that actor is being lit up by that smaller strobe light. So we're going to take that all the way, line it up as best we can with that sound wave right there. The scare noise also ends with a breaker trip, so we kind of want that abrupt blackout to synchronize with the breaker sound. That's kind of the theme through the whole effect. So now everything is set and we have all of our cues programmed on all the proper channels. We want to save our show so that nothing happens to it. Then we need to export it to our SD card, and that's going to be in the upper left-hand corner. When you click export, it's going to open this window and give you the option to run the show off of the SD card or to load it into the internal memory of the controller. Some of the larger controllers require you to run it off the SD card because they don't have the internal memory, but this one does, and that's the route that I normally go. Then you're just using the SD card as a carrier between your computer and the controller, and once the show is loaded, there's no media to lose. No one can mess with it and steal your SD card or run off with it or anything like that. Okay, here's our controller. These are all of our outputs that go to our different lighting effects. Over here on the input side, we have our trigger input that goes to our actor button. This is the power input, and this is the audio output that goes to our powered loudspeaker in the hallway. And now we're going to pop the disc in to program, and when you pop that in, you get this blinking play light right here. and you gotta wait a few seconds, sometimes a couple of minutes. When that gets done blinking, then it tells you that the program is loaded. Sometimes it takes longer than others. The BooBox programmer software, the director software, does periodic updates, and when it does those updates, it just downloads them onto your SD card when you go to program a show. So when you load that SD card, it upgrades your controller at the same time as it loads your show. So sometimes this can take up to a few minutes, other times it takes just a few seconds, depending on whether there are updates happening or not. All right, this is the back of the powered speaker where the audio signal comes from the controller and it goes into our right channel. You want to set the volume to a comfortable level. We do everything really loud here. We have a pretty hefty sound system and we have a lot of customers coming through at once, so we make it loud. So my goal is to make this as loud as possible without lighting up the little red peak light over here. So with the help of the lovely Andi, who's going to trigger the effect, we can see how the level looks. Hit it! I had to write it back down. That light came up and I had to pull it back down and make sure that we weren't blowing the speaker. So now we're in good shape.